Welcome to my shop. This is Gary Hudson at Folkestone Guitars, and I'm starting a new line of guitars. I started these up years ago at the old shop, and I decided to restart it, I guess you'd say, of these badass beaters, as I call them. And a badass beater guitar, I'm going to explain on this video what they are and why you might be interested in one, or maybe having me build one out of a guitar, an existing guitar that you have. So I hope you enjoy this presentation and subscribe to the channel. This is a new channel. It's not my Folkestone Guitars channel or Truth Guitars. It's Badass Beaters. So we're going to explain what the beaters are and what I have to do to them and why these guitars can be of use to you. This first example is going to be my first official Badass beater this year. It's going to be a Squier Telecaster that I acquired yesterday. And I can get these from, sometimes I have customers that want to sell them. Sometimes I run across these in pawn shops, but you can pick them up all over the place for around $100. I got this one for $100, and we're going to be talking about it. Okay, so what I picked up here yesterday was a Squier 2014, Fender Squier Telecaster 2014. And I've done a setup on it, and it sounds pretty good. Plays great, and we're going to make this into a really great player as cheaply as possible, because this is going to be a badass beater. Now, what do you want a badass beater for? Well, these guitars serve as a good backup guitar to whatever you're playing for gigs, and they also might even impress you enough when I'm done with all the modifications I'm going to do to this one. Might even impress you enough just to actually use it as your go-to. I've had that happen years ago when I built a lot of these Tellies and Strats from Squiers. And so let's talk about what changes we're going to make on this guitar that'll make it a beater. And I say beater because this guitar is going to be, it's going to be rugged. I mean, first of all, it's going to have stainless steel frets. I'm going to pull these nickel frets out, and I'm going to put some nice medium jumbo, low profile stainless steel frets in this guitar. I'm going to replace that nut with a bone nut. And as far as hardware goes, about the only thing this guitar needs is a great set of pickups. And so I'm going to get some Dominger pickups for it and put those in there. Well, what about the bridge? Well, it's a string through the top. Nothing wrong with that. And it's kind of rusty, as you can see. And we're going to keep this bridge because I want to change as little of the hardware as possible. I'm only going to change the hardware that's really necessary to change to make this guitar really play great and sound great. I'm not investing a whole lot in these, so I'm sticking mainly a badass beater guitar is going to be stainless, basically stainless steel frets, bone nut, and new pickups, and new pots, CTS pots. That's basically it. I can use the bridge, and there's really nothing wrong with that bridge. I've set this guitar up, and that bridge is working just fine. It intonated perfectly for me. The problem with the intonation on a lot of these cheap bridges, though, is actually I'm in the process of fixing. If you'll notice here, these saddles had to be taken back, particularly on these two, 5 and 6. And when you do that, these intonation screws are so long that they actually wind up running into the string. So the string can be cut, the string's being pinned right there. That's not good. It was being pinned really badly on the E string, and that's the only one I've trimmed so far. But look, I'm going to have to trim it back a little bit further, as you can see. And I'll do that. I'll take this back out and I'll shorten the spring again so that I can get these screws back. And right here I see the G is also being pinned. So that's not good. So we're going to shorten these screws so we won't have that problem. Other than that, nothing wrong with the tailpiece. I'm going to use this bridge. Of course, I'm not going to use the pickup in it. I'm going to have a new pickup with some new screws there. And the control plate will be fine. I'm just going to have to ream out the holes to fit the CTS pots, and it's going to have a 4-way switch. Badass beater is going to have a 4-way. This has a standard 3-way. Mine are going to have a four-way. I'm going to show you what that does as well. So this is going to be a nice, this one is just a wonderful candidate for a badass beater. So I'm going to start off with this one. I think it's a good place to start. These tuners are just fine. Nothing wrong here with them. They're holding. They work fine. So you take one of these guitars, and because it'll have like stainless steel frets on it and great sounding pickups, I mean, you could just blast away. You know, I mean, I'm going to set it up for you and make it play like butter. It's going to have stainless steel frets, bone nut, and everything's going to be intonated properly, and the frets are going to be shining like mirrors, and it's going to have great Domger pickups in it, like I've got in my own custom studio telly. And I mean, you're just going to be able to play the hell out of it. You know, I mean, around the house, just grab the guitar. You don't have to worry about that much about even having a case for it. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't even worry about that. Just, this is like a it's a throw around guitar. It's the kind of guitar that you can just grab and go. You can leave it hanging on your wall. You can leave it sitting on a stand somewhere. And it's, you know, it's going to be like, you just dig right into it, and you're never going to wear the frets out. There is one more thing to show you as far as hardware, a hardware change that I would do on this guitar. Like I said, the tuners are fine, the tailpiece is fine, everything's okay, but this is a problem that I could actually make a whole video on, and that has to do with the break angle of the strings. The string tree, of course, is attached to the headstock on Fender guitars with a flat headstock to give the strings break angle so that they have more of a contact with the nut here, and therefore they don't buzz in the nut, and they ring a lot clearer and don't sound muffled. Well, notice there isn't anything on the G string, so a lot of times there'll be a string tree that will be added right here that'll take care of the G and the D string, but you really don't need to take the D string down. It's a wound string. It really doesn't have a rattle problem. Now this G string is always a problem with Fenders, and that's why they resorted to the double string tree here. But if you'll notice, this guitar, like a lot of Strats, also doesn't have any string tree there. It doesn't have a second one. And I don't know if you can hear this, how well you can hear this. I can plainly hear it from here. Let's try it. Let's see. That G string has a rather muffled sound, and when you give it some break angle over here, press down, that has more sustain. It's actually ringing clearer. Kind of a full sound to it. But anyway, that is a thing that is fixable now thanks to a string tree that StewMac has made available. And it will be replacing this one. So this is something that also will add to the Badass Beaters in hardware. We're going to add the 3-string string tree here. Okay? And that'll take care of those three. It takes care of all three of them and doesn't touch the D string at all. So I think this is a really great string tree idea, and I'm going to be trying that out on my Badass Beaters. And it also comes with various spacers, so whatever height that it needs to be. Sometimes you got to make these lower. This one is down about as low as I ever care to go, with just a small spacer under it. When they're pinned all the way against the headstock, I mean, that's just awful for making the strings just way too tight in the nut, and you're not able to retain tuning very well that way. So I don't recommend that at all, to have them pinned down to the headstock like that. When a guitar comes in here for a setup and it's like that, I'll usually just give the customer a little spacer to put under there. I'll put one under there for him so it doesn't pull these strings so tight through the grooves. But you want them to be tight enough, you want enough break angle so that they ring out clear. On open strings, that is, when you're using an open string. So that string tree will be added, and that's going to be important. Okay, so this is my first video on the Badass Beaters. Today is March 27th, 2022, and thank you very much for tuning in.